Welcome into another episode of the Laser Bros podcast. We are your hosts, Logan and Luke Lazarchik. Today, April 4th, 2025, about 3 weeks from the NFL draft. It's been a few weeks since we've recorded, but we thought that this would be a pretty good time to do the mock draft. March Madness is wrapping up, heading into draft season. I know, Luke, I'm probably going to win our tournament group, so I know you've kind of lost interest in the tournament because I've kind of wiped the floor with the rest of the competition in our group. And
That's like the dumb. I've lost interest in the tournament because you're up. Houston wins it all. I'm fine still. I can win some things, maybe not ours.
Well, I did hear you say the other day that you kind of were. I did hear you say the other day that you kind of have interest in the tournament anymore. I did hear that.
Well, it's just because it's all one seeds and that there wasn't as much excitement this year. And NBA playoffs are looking really, really fun, and that's something that I'm looking at.
Do the NBA playoffs start here in a few weeks? Is it about 3-4 weeks?
A couple weeks. It's a couple weeks.
So yeah, we have the NFL draft, the playoffs coming up. It's a pretty good time in the sports world right now. But we will have a mock draft episode today, our first mock draft for the 2025 NFL draft, which is held in Green Bay from April 24th through the 26th. It's a kind of interesting draft this year. Before we kick off with our picks, it's not as good of a class as in recent years. There's certainly positions in this draft that are better than others, but most of the time when we talk about the NFL draft, it's about quarterbacks, star players, and we don't have a lot of those this year. Not a lot of depth in this year's draft. It's kind of a top-heavy draft.
No, yeah, it is. It's kind of top-heavy. I just don't. I think there's some excitement. I think that like running back is a really fun position this year. I think there's a lot of things like that. There's a lot of athleticism on the edge. There's not a lot of like great production, but a lot of athleticism. And when I was going through, I thought that was interesting. But yeah, not a great. I don't like the quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, I think most of the positioning groups are really good as running back and defensive line. That's the two positions where you kind of see most of the prospects, most of the buzz going in this draft. As you said, quarterback's not that great. Receivers, I mean, usually every year the college game, spits out a lot of receiver talent, and this year it's not the same. There's a few that I think will be really good, but I don't think there's as many certainties as in recent years. So with that being said, let's kick off our mock draft. And what we'll do is we'll each make each pick. So we won't be alternating. I take first, Luke takes second. We'll just giving our opinions on how we think each pick will play out. And this mock draft does also include trades. So this mock draft is based on what we believe will happen about 20 days out. So Luke, you can kick us off with what you believe will happen first pick. And the first and second pick I think are pretty known at this
point. Cam Ward. He's the only quarterback who I think honestly is deserving to be a first-round pick, even though I have multiple quarterbacks in the first round. I think he's the only one truly deserving, and I don't view him as a first pick, but that's what he's going to be. And it's not that, he could turn out to be pretty good. I just don't view him as a first pick. I just don't think he's on the level of other first picks in other years' prospects. But, he's pretty good. He produced a lot. The Titans need a quarterback. Will Levis was good. Mason Rudolph played a little. I really thought they're going to end up trading it, but I think it all signs point to Ward at the first pick.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's going to keep this pick. I don't know if there's going to be a lot. I think Giants are the only team I can see really trading up for that first pick. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Tennessee's going to hold on to this pick. Brian Callahan, he inherited Will Levis in his first year on the job. And to be honest, Brian Callahan, you could make argument is on the hot seat. I don't necessarily think that's the case. But, there could be, if he struggles this year, they may move on to another head coach. There's not a lot of patience level with quarterbacks or head coaches nowadays. So I do think Cam Ward is the pick. I just think you really can't trust Will Levis. His judgment was really bad last year. I think he lost them about 3 games at least, just with, just some of the stupidest throws I've ever seen. Him falling down and doing like a shovel pass towards the sideline right to a defender, those type of things. So, yeah, I do think Cam Ward is the first pick to the Tennessee Titans. And I agree with you. I don't think he's anywhere near the best prospect in this class, but because he's a quarterback, quarterbacks usually get inflated because of the importance of that position. Anything else you want to say before we move on to our second pick? And the first two picks, like I said, I think we're going to each have the same picks, to be honest.
No, there's not much else.
Okay. Second pick, the Cleveland Browns. Their owner, Jimmy Haslam, made it pretty clear that they made a mistake trading for Deshaun Watson, but he said they will not force taking a quarterback. So it kind of, I mean, all the tea leaves are there. I think they're going to take Abdul Carter with this pick, and I think it's the right pick. You pair him with Myles Garrett, having those two edge rushers coming off the edge. I think this is kind of a no-brainer pick for the Cleveland Browns. I think this is by far him and Travis Hunter are the two clear best prospects in this year's draft class.
Yeah, I have Abdul Carter as well. Him and Myles Garrett. I mean, that'd be the only thing that makes you, we have something special here if we have Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter. That's like the only thing. Because like if you get Travis Hunter, I mean, I think he's good, but I mean, do you make him where him and Judy are 1 and 2, or do you make it where him and Denzel Ward and just Abdul Carter, safe pick. They suck, but Abdul Carter should be a good pick there.
Yeah, and I think Travis Hunter could be under consideration here. Travis Hunter, we'll be talking about him here soon. I imagine the first top 5 picks. It is interesting. It is going to be interesting where teams kind of put him, either a receiver or corner. And we'll talk about that here shortly. The third pick, currently owned by the New York Giants. Luke, where do you see the Giants going with this pick, or do you see them possibly trading this pick?
See, this is where I have Travis Hunter. And I imagine Travis Hunter here playing more corner than receiver because the Giants have neighbors. They re-signed Slate into a contract that shows that they value him. So I think here that they just go best player. I don't think they're going to go Shedeur. I just don't think it's there. They signed Wilson and Jameis. I'm not saying Shedeur is out of the question, but I don't think they're going there. I think their only guy is Cam Ward. And a part of me, I think the big shock, which I think is possible, is Giants give a haul for Cam Ward. They feel the pressure to go get their guy, especially with the whole HBO Max series, and he wanted Jaden Daniels and all that mess. So that's a possibility, but I just don't see it happening. So Travis Hunter, he can play corner. He can be your slot wide receiver with Neighbors and Slate in there. And that kind of gives you some dynamic offense to some level. Nothing. I don't think it pushes you to some insane amount, especially with Wilson and Jameis. But it's something. He's the best player available. I just don't see Shedeur going here. So it has to be Travis Hunter.
I have Shedeur going here. For me, this goes all to – this is Brian Dable's last year, potentially, with the Giants, and he needs to win this year. And I just don't think you can win with Jameis and Russell Wilson. I think both of them can have stretches where they play well. Russell Wilson, especially behind this offensive line, I don't think he's going to be that good. And then Jameis, we saw last year, he can be explosive. But when you watch Jameis Winston, it's not because you want to watch good football. It's because you want to watch a really entertaining game. And, yeah, he can lie at the scoreboard, but he can also give points to the other team. I just don't think that's a winning formula for this team. And I know they paid Russell Wilson $10 million guaranteed. He's going to be the starter. I don't see them going through another draft where they pass on a quarterback this high in the draft. Because if next year you're at this point, this high in the draft, you're going to take a quarterback. And I just don't. It's hard for me to imagine seeing them pass up on another quarterback when you're another top 4, 5, 6 pick.
But why are you saying pass up on another quarterback? They didn't pass up.
Last year I know Malik Neighbors is a superstar receiver, but 5 other quarterbacks did go after they had that pick. My point is they've passed on quarterback. They had a 6th pick last year.
But it wasn't 5 other quarterbacks in the first round. What are you talking about? It was Penix, Nix, and McCarthy. The other 3 went before.
Okay, 3. Okay, but I think.
But there's a huge gap. There's a huge gap between Drake May and Michael Penix. I don't think that's necessarily we don't even know if Bo Nix is the best, and he had the lowest grade of those 3. I don't think they passed on a quarterback. And you pay the money to Wilson, Jameis. You may not think it's the best way of winning, but I think that's how they think it. And they don't want to waste it. Because if let's say they're 2 and 5, Dable's fired then. He's not waiting till the end of the year. And that's when Shedeur gets in. So I think Shedeur doesn't impact Dable winning this year. So that's why I just think they go Travis Hunter. Because those 2 are fired at 2 and 5. They just are. They're gone. And then Shedeur come in. And it wouldn't even matter to them.
I do get that point because I think ownership could let's say, for instance, Dave will want a quarterback there. The ownership could step in and say, you guys are gonna have to find another way to win, and we're going to draft the best player available, which would be Travis Hunter. So I get that point of thought. I just think they go Shador here. I know Adam Schefter reported that he doesn't see the Giants or the Browns drafting Shador at 2 or 3, but at this time of the year, I mean, I don't think anybody's really telling the truth to any of these reporters. So I still think Shador is going to go here. That's just my gut feeling. I certainly couldn't blame them for going to Travis Hunter, but I do think Sanders is the pick at 3 for the Giants. 4th pick, the New England Patriots. I think this is another interesting spot. I think they can go a lot of avenues here. I think if Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are both off the board, which in your scenario they would be, I could see the Patriots potentially trading back because I think they want one of those 2 players. And realistically, they're not going to get Abdul Carter. He's just going to go to the Browns. But I think Travis Hunter is definitely a play for them, and that's where I have Travis Hunter going is the New England Patriots. And I know we've kind of disagreed on where he should play. I think if you're drafting him this high and you want him to make as much impact as possible, I think you play him at receiver. And that's not saying he's not a really good corner. But receiver, he's a dynamic athlete. You can put the ball in his hands more often. I think they're going to draft him to play receiver. They already have Christian Gonzalez. They paid $20 million to get another corner from the Carlton Davis. They paid $20 million a year for. I kind of see Travis Hunter playing receiver for the Patriots if they go this route.
No, the thing with Travis Hunter, if you draft him in the top 5, he has to play both sides of the ball, in my opinion. I don't think he's good enough at either to be a top 5 pick alone. So, but if they draft him, if Patriots get him, he's going to be more receiver than corner. He'd probably be like a slot corner, which I think would be good, but I still see his value more as a corner. I just do, especially in this receiver league where there's so many receivers. But if they're at 4 and he's there, you take him, you figure it out, or you trade back. But in my case, he's not there at 4. I considered a trade back, but I didn't. And I just think they take Will Campbell. Besides the arm stuff, he's like a.
And I think that stuff's been overstated, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and even if he's not a tackle and you screw up a little bit and he's a guard, then you have a great guard. So I think they take him. I don't know exactly where they put him on the line.
Okay, so back to your case about and I get what you're saying, but positional value, would drafting a potential guard at 4 overall be a bit of overpay?
I'm not about. I'm not. I don't care about positional value. I don't care about that. I care about it a little bit, but not a ton. But I think they're drafting him with the intent to play tackle, but the backup is guard. So I think that's a good pick for them. Safe. It's not sexy or anything, but I think it feels like a Patriot pick.
We'll move to the 5th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll let you start off with this one. This is another trade back potential spot for me.
Yep.
But I think this could be a trade back spot.
Yep, and that's exactly what I have. Because looking at the 5th pick for them, I don't think they have their superstar. Probably want to collect picks. And I'm just thinking about in this draft, it's not great. You got to go get the superstars. And I think the Bears trade up to 5, so 5-10 swap. And I think they go get Genty. There's a lot of talk about the Raiders getting Genty. And I just see Ben Johnson like, hey, I want Genty. I had Gibbs. He plays a lot like Gibbs, but he's even tougher to bring down just physically. He's better after contact. I think Genty's amazing. Genty, in my mind, you can argue just pure talent is the best player in this draft. Even better than Hunter Carter. I think you can argue it. And so I think they trade up and then they go get Genty, and then they have this great line. Caleb Williams has DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, Genty, and basically it's like now you can't be bad this year. And you have Ben Johnson, so I think that's what I think they're setting them up for full success offensively.
Yeah, I get that. I just think, for me, the Bears, they've had a great offseason. I think that they're just going to stick with their picks. I really don't see them moving a lot in this draft. And I don't mean to spoil potentially any of my picks, but for me, Jacksonville, with Trent Baalke, who is now fired, they've kind of gone for the home run picks, and those have not always panned out. I think they make a really safe pick here and go Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan. Really productive player. I think he's one of the safest prospects in this year's draft. And, they had one of the worst defenses last year. really bad against the run, didn't really generate a lot of pressure, despite taking Trayvon Walker first overall a couple of years ago. I think they go safe here. They have a new GM, and I think, trading back, like you said, I think trading back could be a risk because they could miss out on top player. But I think Mason Graham's just too safe of a player and too productive a player to pass up for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If it was another team, potentially they wouldn't even take Mason Graham. But I think for Jacksonville, I think this is a perfect fit for the team who needs to address the defensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go to the 6th pick, and I'll kick this one off. Las Vegas Raiders, I have them keeping this pick, and I have them taking Ashton Genty. They just signed Geno Smith to a contract extension, and it's kind of the same vibes as last year, where nobody had Brock Bowers linked to the Raiders at all during the pre-draft process, and they drafted the best offensive player available. I think that's exactly what they're going to do with Ashton Genty. Their running game was Zamir White and Amir Abdullah last season.
Yeah.
You can't go into the year again with that type of run game. And I think Ashton Genty is really – I think this is the easiest pick, for the Raiders in this spot.
If he was there, I 100% think Raiders take Genty, and that's why I have Bears trading up for him. I was also thinking about Raiders trading up one spot for him, but I had the Bears with the bigger trade up. And so without Genty, I haven't taken Will Johnson. Will Johnson's just a stud at Michigan. He doesn't really get talked about, and he could be a better corner than Travis Hunter. He very well could be. And maybe Travis Hunter turns into a one-position player in the NFL because you never know how things go. So I have Raiders taking Will Johnson. They've considering O-line a little. I just think they go best player available. In my opinion, that's Will Johnson. They have a need at corner, so I think that just fits smoothly. And I can move to the 7th pick.
Yeah, let's move to the 7th pick, and you can kick us off that one.
So then I have the Jets, and then without the Raiders taking a lineman, I have my second lineman taking Armand Membu from Mizzou. He's really shot up the draft boards past month, and now it's he may be the first tackle. And if you're the Jets, you were a mess at tackle. You had nothing going on. The whole season was wild. Now you have Justin Fields, and it's just weird, but I just think they go safe with tackle. Nothing flashy, just get a tackle.
Yeah, I have the same position, except I have Will Campbell going to the Jets in this spot. Like you said, the Jets need to, set a foundation for this team, and I think, this is another safe pick. Will Campbell, I do not care about the arm length. I think those type of measurements are always overstated. I think a lot of the combine measurements and drills, I think are always just kind of overblown, overrated. I could care less what players do. Now, if it's alarming, a wide receiver runs a 4.9 40, it's okay, that's something. But I think it's a safe pick for the Jets. I think Will Campbell could be a really good tackle. They got Olu Fashanu last year out of Penn State. So if you're uncomfortable with Will Campbell's arm length, you can shift him over to right tackle if need be. So I think if they can solidify the tackle positions, you have Justin Fields, you have Garrett Wilson, I think they can have a solid run game. But offensive line's always been a major issue for the Jets. Mm-hmm. So I think, get a really safe player at that position is what the Jets should do. And I think that's what they will do in this pick. The 8th pick, this is my first trade of my mock draft. I have the Carolina Panthers trading back with the San Francisco 49ers, and San Francisco 49ers take the offensive tackle that you just mentioned, out of Missouri, Armand Membu. I think the 49ers really, I don't know if neglect is the right word, but they really don't value offensive linemen as much as other teams do. They have Trent Williams, and there's just a bunch of, regular Joes to fill out the rest of the offensive line. I think Membu, you can start him out right tackle, and then once Trent Williams retires here in a couple of years, he can shift over to left tackle. But I think 49ers kind of have to address the offensive line, and I know they really are predicated on running the ball. They lean on the run game, and I think they need to address the offensive line. And I know they lost a lot of defensive players here too, but I do think that they go with Membu out of Missouri.
I like that trade. I think that's a pretty good trade. Niners are they can take whatever. I still trust the Niners that they're going to be pretty solid this year just because good organizations, good head coach, pretty solid quarterback, they'll figure it out. And they're still talent. They still have talent.
Yeah, and Carolina doesn't even have their own second-round pick, so that's why I kind of thought that this would. Yeah. This is why this was the first trade back spot for me.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. Well, for me, for the Panthers, I have them taking Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. He's pretty athletic. I think he's just like everyone really likes him. I think he's a solid player. I think he's athletic. They just need defense. Their defense was atrocious. And at that point, he's the best player available, unless you love someone else a lot more, which I'm not. I mean, there's Mason Graham, but they have Derek Brown, and so that those two may not go together. Need some athleticism. You got Jalen Walker, and then going to the ninth pick, Saints. So I almost had them trading up here because if you remember, I have Shadur not yet drafted. And so I think this is what I think is honestly the best spot for Shadur. Even though I don't love the Saints organization as a whole, I think that you have Carr there. Derek Carr's a veteran. He still can do some stuff, but he's definitely fallen off. And he can go in New Orleans. I could see him starting early. I could see him starting late. They do have some weapons. You have Rashid Shaheed, even though I don't know when he's coming back from injury.
I don't know his status for this year. I think it's pretty uncertain right now because I believe, he had the meniscus.
You still have Olave. You have Kamara. So I think this is a nice spot for Shadur. I like it, even though the Saints organization is kind of bummy.
Yeah, this is actually the first spot where I was thinking receiver, but I just don't think the Saints pull the trigger at this spot. I have them taking Alabama linebacker Jihad Campbell. To me, Saints, they feel like they go defensive player. Most of these picks in the first round, they always go for, the firepower at pass rusher. And Jihad Campbell played linebacker the last two, or before this last season, played linebacker the previous 2 seasons because of Dallas Turner and Will Anderson were their rushing the passer. And he got to play a little bit of both edge rusher and off-ball linebacker. So I think the versatility there kind of attracts the Saints. And I think it's another pick in this draft where safe may be the wrong word, but I do think the Saints value defense and offensively. Kellen Moore's there, so I was very tempted to think that the Saints could go with receiver here just because Kellen Moore is now the head coach. But I think they're going to give Brandon Staley a chess piece on the defensive side of the ball. I will now go to the 10th pick, the Chicago Bears. I did not have them trading up for Ashton Genty. Instead, I have them taking offensive tackle Kelvin Banks out of Texas. I just think they need to finish building this offensive line. You did great at the guards. You have Darnell Wright, but I do think they still need another tackle on their offensive line. And I think it's a great move for the Bears. I think, Caleb Williams' protection. I believe he was sacked 68 times last year. So you have the interior of the line solidified. But I think now they go get the second tackle, and I think he ends up playing left tackle for the Bears.
I can see that working, even though I think it'd be a little bit of a reach. But I guess there's just not great talent. Part of the reason I had them train up to 5. Well, with my 10th pick, I had the same exact pick as you, that you had earlier. I had Jacksonville trade back to 10. Mason Graham's still there. Honestly, probably the best value of my draft, or one of the best values. Get Mason Graham at 10, you get more picks, safe pick, you need defense, all the points that you said. And yeah, I think that's a perfect situation for Jacksonville. And then if I go to my 11th pick, Niners, I had a lot of thoughts about the Niners. I was thinking many things. Like I even thought about Tyler Warren for a second because I could see them doing this 2 tight end. Warren, Kittle, I was like Kyle Shanahan would mess around with that. I really thought about it, like a shock pick that they take Tyler Warren. But I just went defense. Shamar Stewart, he had just an insane combine. Texas A&M edge. They need edge rushers. You have Nick Bosa. They just need a lot. They need a lot. And they could kind of just take whatever they want. And I see him going defense here because offense, Kyle Shanahan can still mess around. Offensive line was a consideration, but I just don't see him pulling the trigger on anyone because I don't think anyone is good enough for the Niners to take him there. So, Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, I think that's a really solid pick for the 49ers in that spot to get another edge rusher. I don't necessarily agree with the Tyler Warren thing. I think they just have too many needs on that roster to go get another tight end.
No, yeah, it was It was a bold, like they go nuts and do something that makes no sense, but then Kyle Shanahan makes it something crazy.
Well, I have your exact pick from earlier. So I had Carolina trading back to this spot with the 49ers. I have them taking linebacker Jalon Walker out of Georgia. They traded Brian Burns last offseason. They need another pass rusher. And to be honest, I mean, defense for Carolina is just a no-brainer. It's just what position do they go? They could go Will Johnson. They could go, like you said, Shamar Stewart. But I think Jalon Walker out of Georgia. Georgia produces a lot of really good defensive players. I just think that's the route that Carolina goes with this pick. I will now go to the 12th pick, and the 12th pick is owned by the Dallas Cowboys, and this is where I have the first receiver. If you do not want to categorize Travis Hunter as a receiver, this is the first receiver off the board for me. Tatoria McMillan out of Arizona. I think at this point in the draft, they need a receiver. I think he's the best receiver on the board. He's not the same type of receiver CeeDee Lamb. He's more of a jump ball receiver, can go get the ball, really good red zone target. And I think him and CeeDee Lamb are really complement each other. And this would also allow CeeDee Lamb to operate more out of the slot, which, easier matchups against slot corners than on the outside. So I have the Cowboys taking McMillan and using him as a red zone threat and just a jump ball receiver as well. And I do have questions about separation and all that. And then people also talk about, the video that surfaced. That video was also when he was 19. It wasn't just from this week. It was from when he was 19. So we don't know if that's still the case. I still have question marks about him. But I think for Dallas, they have to make a move at receiver. You can't just keep depending on one receiver the entire season.
No, I agree. When I saw McMillan, I watched him play against K-State. He played well. Like I think he had 9 for 130 something or something in that realm. But the whole time, I was just like, he's not popping out anywhere. He just did his thing, but nothing special. And I think he can be a good receiver, but I think people have been saying Drake London. I don't think he's going to be as good as Drake London. But with the Cowboys, no, Pittman.
I think he's better than Michael Pittman, but
I don't think he'll be better than Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman. I really like Michael Pittman, as you know, but I do agree that Cowboys need a receiver. But I just don't have it. I don't have it as McMillan. All the momentum is toward Matthew Golden right now. Fast 40. Everyone's really liking his film. He's kind of just popped out of the blue. I know when mock drafts first came out, we were like, what? We thought that was stupid, but it's just literally every single draft guy was saying it, and it was really out of nowhere. And sometimes you have to pay attention to that. And then he has a fast 40. And then I'm looking at Dallas. I just don't see Jerry drafting a boring receiver like McMillan. I see him going and the Texas guy. I see him going for the Texas guy, the fast guy, 40-yard dash. I think he snags Matthew Golden.
Yeah, and I was looking at some Matthew Golden stats for today because I'm not going to spoil it. I do not have him going in this first round.
He's going in the production
the production for me just wasn't. So I was looking at it. So in his 3 college seasons, and this is regular season, he never surpassed 47 catches. He never surpassed 800 receiving yards. The touchdowns were always there, 7, 6, and 8. But it's just there's a lot of these games where it's 2 for 51. Then he had a game for 740 for 149. Then 2 for 49. Then he had 2 for 9 and 1 against Vanderbilt early in the season. There's too many far in between of these games. It's not consistent production. I don't really get it. I think a lot of the reason why he's jumping up the draft boards is because of physical tools. But to me, and I know they're 2 different types of receivers, but when I look at these game logs and the stats, it kind of reminded me of Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman had these games where he would blow up and had games where he would disappear. And Matthew Golden, to me, there's too many instances that he just fully disappeared in games this season for Texas.
No, yeah, but it's not what we think. It's what we think happens, not where we think it should be. And I think that I feel like Matthew Golden's a lock to be a first rounder. I think that you're letting your personal belief. He's going to be a first rounder. He just will. Because we said the same thing about Xavier Worthy. Chiefs took him in the early 20s. I mean, and it's not a good draft. And McMillan has a lot of, I want to say red flags, but yellow flags. So Golden's going first round. I feel pretty good about that. Even though I don't think Golden or McMillan are my wide receiver 1. My wide receiver one's Emeka Buka. I don't think he's a star, but I think he's my wide receiver one. Going to 13th pick. Dolphins, they always need a line. Guard, I just went Tyler Booker, Bama. I think he's the best lineman. He may not be a tackle, but I think he's the best lineman available. They need something just to protect them. Nothing flashy. You have your two speedsters. You have Jonnu. You have all your fast running backs. Just go get a lineman, and I think that's what they do.
Yeah, I have the same exact pick. And especially with Tua, you need the interior of the line strong because he's always getting rushed up the middle. That's where you kind of see some of his concussions is he gets hit right up the middle. I think Tyler guard in the draft. I think this draft for Dolphins, they need to get more physical. So I think offensive line and defensive line is where they need to concentrate most of their draft capital is on those two on both sides of the ball. If they go, and they probably won't go into skill position players, but they need to go get physical because every year, they're really just a vanilla team. They're going to lose when it's cold weather, and they're not going to beat good teams. So until they change that, and I think Mike McDaniel, I think the Dolphins this year, this is where it could potentially fall apart, and you could see them trading away some players at the trade deadline. But yeah, I think we're both on the same page that they have to get offensive line help, especially a guard.
Mm-hmm.
I will now move to the 14th pick in our mock draft. This one I think happens, but everybody's mocking this player to this team. I have Tyler Warren going to the Colts. So that's the only reason of pause is that everybody is saying Tyler Warren to the Colts. So they'll go draft a defensive lineman or something. That's the only reason why I'm worried that this doesn't happen. But Tyler Warren really carried Penn State's offense last year. He's going to potentially enter the similar situation with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson at quarterback. They need somebody to help them in that offense. And I think they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that Anthony Richardson gets the true chance at development, and if not, giving Daniel Jones a chance to compete and succeed on the field.
Yeah, I also have Warren, and it makes me really want to that's why I want to do that Niners pick because I feel like something's going to be weird with Warren. I've discussed with you maybe a Patriots trade back for Warren because they could use a weapon, but I didn't go that route. I think that's super bold, but I could still see Niners. But Colts, even if they make that trade, or they make the pick, you have Taylor. You did lose two interior linemen. That was bad.
Yeah.
Was it both interior Fries and?
I thought it was both guards.
Or one was a center.
No, I think one was center. Yeah,
they're center, and they still have Quinn Nelson though. But you have let's say take the pick. They have Warren, Jonathan Taylor, Pittman, Downs, Pierce, and
Adonai Mitchell.
So that's a lot of. That's a lot of weapons. That is a lot of weapons. And so that's why I paused, but I was just if he's there at 14, I didn't think I'd have him there. There's a few players I didn't think would fall where I had them falling. But yeah, I think he goes there. Daniel Jones with Warren and all of them, he's going to do great. But
this is really I can't believe because I already know you're rooting for Daniel Jones. You are rooting against our dynasty team.
Our dynasty team's great. Our dynasty team's great. I want to be right about Daniel Jones. We have so many.
But here's the thing: Anthony Richardson. I know.
Do you know what? Do you know what also helped?
No, but the ceiling of Richardson is if he can hit.
My God, he's not good at football.
That's why I said if. I don't know if it's going to happen, but if it happens, the ceiling.
He's just not good at football, and that's all I'm going to say. That's my only point. I think it's the best point. He's just not good at football. But as I was saying, I do think Jonathan Taylor would actually do better statistically with Daniel Jones because he would get to run the ball more.
Richardson would take away goal line carries as well.
Yes. So, boom, in your face. We have Jonathan Taylor.
I just made the point for you. What do you mean, boom? I made the point for you.
Well, I started it, but then you continued it because you realized how right it was. But
I bet we're going to have the same pick. We're going
to have the same pick here. I'm very confident. We have -2. Yeah. Falcons need an edge rusher. They need pass rush. I assume we're each going Mike Green.
Okay, do we want to say? Okay, I was going to say, do we want to say a name at the same time and see if we say the same name? But
with our slight delay, we wouldn't be able to time that well. We'd have to take off our headphones and do that. But Mike Green, Marshall, he's the one pass rusher with true production. and he's athletically really gifted. So I think that's pretty easy. They couldn't sack anyone. If they go offense again, someone should beat him upside the head. Just go get Mike Green.
Yeah, I think I truly believe that they're an elite pass rusher away from being actually true contenders in the NFC. Now, I don't
Because
trust
they
the
have a good
coaching.
defense, like outside.
Yeah, no, I don't trust their coaching. That is the one thing that would always give me pause on the Atlanta Falcons. And I'm so stupid. I put the Falcons every division parlay last season. I would have made some good money if I didn't do that. Mike Green, I think the two main concerns, and these aren't really concerns for me, but I do think they have to come up in the conversation, is he's a bit undersized for his position, and then the competition at Marshall. That's really the only two.
I mean, but we always do that with smaller schools. And it's just
No, I know, but that's just two things that kind of stand out. But he had 17 sacks last year for Marshall, and I think he's a freak athlete. And Atlanta, you need to go edge rusher. And I know that may sound like, oh, you're forcing edge rusher just because you need one. They really have everything else on this team. Now, they did lose their starting center to the Bears, but
you can get over
I
that.
think their offensive line, yeah, you can get a center, and their offensive line is already good as is. This is a no-brainer pick for me. I absolutely agree with you.
I knew we were going to have the.
And really, to be honest, I don't think his stock was as high. Like, I think a month ago, he was probably going end of first round, the 20s or 30s.
Yeah,
but
it's
I
risen.
think so. Yeah, so he's a mid first round pick. I have him going to the Falcons as well. 16th pick. Let me look at what I have written down. I should have this memorized. Okay,
I think this is the most boring pick. Or unless
not of mine. So I have a trade here. This is going to be a controversial pick, and this could be absolutely just wrong. So remember a couple of years ago, the Cardinals traded back with the Houston Texans, who double dipped. They got a quarterback and an edge rusher in the first round.
Yeah.
I have the Cleveland Browns doing the exact same thing, taking Abdul Carter second and taking Jackson Dart 16th overall. I know it's a bit rich, but they need a quarterback. Really, the only quarterback on their roster right now is Kenny Pickett. Now, they could go Kirk Cousins. It will be interesting to see if they go draft Jackson Dart, if Kirk Cousins becomes, just he's not interested in the Browns. I do think there is mutual interest between Cousins and the Browns, and there's no reporting on that. I just believe that is the case. I wonder if this does change Cousins, route if they go Jackson Dart. But I think the Browns kind of take a big swing here and go get their quarterback of the future.
See, I think that's a little early, but I understand that Arizona has liked to be aggressive with like trade backs. So I could see that, but I think that's a little early, but I don't dislike it. I'm not going to spoil any more of my mock draft in the future, but this is a boring pick. Arizona needs some defense. Derek Harmon, Oregon D tackle. They just need some stuff up front. I mean, like Zayvon Collins would be better and stuff. They need to stop going offense. They're just, I don't know. I think they need to tackle because the interior D-line was not great. They have more stuff on the edge, but the interior is not great. They got Derek Harmon. Not probably the most boring pick.
To be honest, Arizona's like the one team where I just kind of don't care what they do because
I don't care, and
it's not going to transfer to any winning because I think this is going to be Kyler Murray's last year on the Cardinals. I think they're going to try to trade him next offseason. They can get out of the contract. Cardinals I just don't really care because they will find a way to just make the pick kind of useless. They've had high end picks throughout the years, drafting elite talents that don't pan out, like Isaiah Simmons. I thought that guy was going to be a stud, and he kind of.
I thought he was going to be so good.
I think much apart because he went to Arizona. So
I think he was never going to be good. Looking at it, I think he was just he was never going to be a star.
Oh, I think if he lands in a right spot,
I think it seemed like he was just. I think some guys don't have it, and I just think he was one of them. But moving to pick 17, a few boring picks here. It's kind of back half of the early second half of the first round. It's kind of boring for me. It picks up a little bit later, but right now it's kind of boring. Mikael Williams, Georgia edge rusher, Bengals. They need defense. Who knows what's happening with Trey Hendrickson? But we all know that their defense is abysmal. and some people may think O-line, but just pick a defense every pick. Like, remember the Angels picked I guess it didn't work out for them, but they picked like a pitcher in every pick of the draft or something, MLB draft. Just do that with defense. Just go defense, defense, defense. Best edge rusher, depending on your opinion. Mikael Williams. I was deciding between edge rushers. I feel like the back half of the first round edge rushers are kind of they're all bunched together. So I went Mikael Williams.
I have the same exact pick. Trey Henderson, I'm not sure if he's going to be on the team based on his recent comments. I just don't know if they're going to be able to work out a contract, and I could see him staying out until they get a contract done. He had 17 sacks last year. The rest of the team had 19. They need to get edge rusher, and like you said, defense should be the forefront of their draft this year. Every pick should be on the defense side of the ball. You have a quarterback. You have your two receivers locked up. Chase Brown's a solid running back. Offensive line, I think they could, use a pick somewhere
I think it'd be
later in the draft. I don't think they should, but I mean, their offensive line's it's always an issue as well. So,
but they always figure it out, even with their bad O-line. That's the thing. I think their O-line's been bad, but if Burrow stays healthy, which obviously bad O-line affects, but they still figure it out. I mean, Chase Brown was a really good running back this year, and I think that offense was clearly great. So I think that, oddly enough, the O-line in Cincinnati is people overvalue the need for it because they're so talented.
18th pick. We'll go to there. The Seattle Seahawks. I've seen a lot of mock drafts. Seattle taking receiver. I just don't see that being the case.
Stupid.
I've seen Matthew Golden mocked to Seattle a lot, in a lot of mock drafts. I have Shamar Stewart going here to Seattle. They need an edge rusher desperately. I think the offensive line could be another place that they go here. I think that's where you're going to end up going is offensive line, offensive guard. Shamar Stewart, he's another player with not a lot of production. He had 4.5 sacks through 3 seasons in college. But like you said, the physical traits are there, measurements are there. He had a really good combine. I think Seattle takes Shamar Stewart. And with Will McDonald, I think they're going to continue to establish a defensive culture. And I think offensive line is definitely a good recommendation here. I just think they go edge rusher. They haven't really had a good edge rusher in a while.
See, the whole Seattle offseason, it's good if they fix the O-line. Because Sam Darnold's not good with pressure. But I actually like the trades and getting picks and Cooper Kupp, but you have to hit some linemen. So I'm going linemen. And I'm just going best lineman available. Kelvin Banks, I feel like he's the safest lineman available. I'd be shocked if Kelvin Banks is a bad football player. I could kind of see him being a mid one, but I don't think he'd be like some bum who's done after his first contract. So I had Kelvin Banks. They can put him left tackle, right tackle, wherever the heck they want to put him. They just need bodies on that front. So So basically, in my head, they're drafting linemen. It's just which linemen.
And that kind of makes sense with your mock draft of how the board's falling of them taking Kelvin Banks. I think at that spot,
he kind of
is for sure the best player available for positions of need for Seattle. If you're talking about what they need, my Shamar Stewart, for me, it's a kind of a risky pick, but at the same time, I think if they hit on that, I think it could prove worthwhile. And they have 5 picks in the top 92. They could go another offensive lineman, and maybe going defensive lineman this early would be a mistake because there's still some good offensive linemen, some good guards available, especially like on my board, for instance, there would be some good offensive linemen. I just think they take talent and complete upside and try to boost that defense a little bit because the defense last year
at the slot, but
I just think they have good secondary, but they what's their pass rush? They have Leonard Williams. And they have good interior. Leonard Williams and Jaron Reed, but they need some edge rushers.
Yeah, I just think that it's all about Sam Darnold. He needs work out. You traded Geno Smith. If Sam Darnold sucks, you're all getting fired. You're getting linemen. 19th pick, Tampa Bay. Their defense wasn't that good. Malachi Starks, best safety. I feel like he's pretty well known as the best safety, but he's a safety. Yeah. So they kind of fall. So I just slot him with Tampa. I don't have a ton about it. He could be really good with Winfield. That could be nice. I went best defensive player available, even though there's another defensive player I considered. Jody Barron, Texas corner. But I went safety here. I think they need safety a little more.
So there's a player on my board that's kind of entered a free fall. And so I have the Rams trading up to the 19th pick with Tampa Bay Buccaneers and taking cornerback Will Johnson out of Michigan.
Oh my God! I didn't even realize Will Johnson falling that far.
I have Will Johnson fall, and I this is another player I think necessarily could not, like, this could be another pick where I just look absolutely wrong and over my skis, but I do think he slips a little bit because of teams in the previous spots needing positions that need that badly. But I have Will Johnson going to the Los Angeles Rams, and now they have Jared Verse, and you pair him with Will Johnson. I think the Rams, if this plays out, could have one of the most elite defenses in the league.
If the Bengals passed on Will Johnson, I'd be like, you're the dumbest people ever. Which, they're the Bengals, so do you know what? Maybe that was a great thing you just did there.
And Rams, I kind of have a vibe that Rams are going to trade up in this draft and be aggressive. They tried to trade up last year and get Brock Bowers.
I feel like every year I do that.
Every year I think they're going to trade up. I think they're going to find a way to trade up. And if Will Johnson's there, I mean, I think you'll see a lot of teams be aggressive, but I think Rams are going to be the team that gets it. 20th pick, the Denver Broncos. This is kind of another pick where it kind of feels like the perfect fit. I have North Carolina running back Omarion Hampton going to the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton likes to handpick his running backs. They just had a North Carolina product in Javonte Williams, but I think Omarion Hampton, he's really strong runner, can also catch out of the backfield. I think he's a perfect fit for Sean Payton's offense. And they wanted to get a tight end or a running back this offseason, and they signed Evan Ingram. So, process of elimination, I think they take running back at 20th overall.
See, I was really thinking running back, but then I was just looking at Colston Loveland, and I think your pick's fine, and that may have been my pick. But even with Evan Ingram, I think Sean Payton wants another, because I think Evan Ingram's going to be everywhere, and then Colston Loveland will be the classic tight end. And so I still have him going Colston Loveland. I think that I almost said Chargers trading up for him in this case, just in case. But I said, you know what? I think Chargers stay put because I have a player who's fallen, and I go with Colston Loveland in Denver. But I did think about running back, but in my head I said they're going to take running back round 2.
So what Colston Loveland, I think he's going to be a really solid tight end. The one thing is he does not block. So if you have Evan Ingram and Colston Loveland, both kind of non-blocking tight ends, I don't really see the fit. I kind of get by. I think they got Evan Ingram. They gave him a 2 or 3 year deal. I do not see them going with 2 tight ends who are primarily pass catchers and really don't run block. So I don't really agree with that pick. But I get where you're coming from, but just schematically wise, I don't see that happening. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it playing out that
way. Oh, yeah, that's fine. I felt that one was a little bold. This next pick, 21st pick, Steelers. I don't agree with this pick at all, but I'm just going to go with what the rumor mill says. I'm not even going to break it down. I just have Jalen Milroe.
I have the same exact pick, and I threw up in my mouth when I made this pick because I do not think he's going to be a good quarterback, but it's a Steelers thing to do, and most of the time what Steelers do with their quarterbacks, I don't agree with. So
no, I was very open-minded.
Wait, so you have Milroe in front of Jackson Dart?
I don't think it should. I'm just saying what I think will happen. Yes. Okay.
I just find it hard to believe if Jackson Dart's on the board that they would pass up Dart for Milroe.
I think they love Milroe. I don't think they should. I'm just going with the rumors, Logan. I'm just going with the rumors. And I was more positive. I was more open-minded on Milroe than most heading into the last college football season. I was like, you know what? He went to the college football playoff. He had some throws that were nice in big moments. He had some, but he had some nice throws. I just saw hey, that's a nice throw in a big situation. Good for him. It's not like he's Brady or Mahomes, but a nice throw. And then it's after this year, it's no, you guys got slaughtered by Oklahoma, who sucked, and you threw 4 picks or something. Yeah, I don't think we need to break that down.
And I think so. I have Milroe as well. I just think, one, they play against Lamar Jackson every season, so I think that's kind of in the back of their head. And secondly, they don't have their own second-round pick. So unless they potentially trade back from the spot and accumulate another pick, then maybe they can do that. But I just think in my mock draft, I already have 3 quarterbacks off the board. I think they're going to get desperate, and I still think they'll probably sign Aaron Rodgers still. And I think they can't go out this like if they go out this season with Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph. I mean, Rodgers got hurt or starts. I don't. And Mike Tomlin said he was comfortable with Mason Rudolph. I don't agree with anything that the Steelers do from a quarterback perspective. So that's why I think
I'm actually fine with them signing Rodgers. I think it's fine. What else are you gonna do?
No, I'm fine with that too. But it's just like I don't think they're gonna compete for a Super Bowl ring. They'll be the same old Steelers, even with Rodgers. I don't think he really.
Do you know who they should have gone and tried to get? And this isn't that great either, but Andy Dalton.
Oh hell no!
Logan, I mean, there's just not a lot out there. I think Andy Dalton could be okay. He did some solid stuff with the not great Panthers team last year.
With the Panthers, this is Steelers. The Steelers, he would not. No.
I don't hate it. It's just an idea, man. Just do your pick. It's just an idea.
All right.
They're going to sign Aaron Rodgers. I think you could. They're going to sign 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who's terrible. I think that you can be open to some things here.
All right. 22nd pick. This is actually the perfect spot and perfect fit. Colston Loveland to the Los Angeles Chargers. They need a tight end. Will Disley was, I believe, the second leading receiver on that team last season, and he's just not that good of a tight end. Colston Loveland played at Michigan, played for Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I don't really need to say more. I think this is just a perfect fit and obvious need for the Chargers.
And I almost had Chargers trading up ahead of Denver for it. And if Denver doesn't take Loveland, and I don't feel great about it, but that's what I felt. I have Chargers taking Loveland. But I have had the consensus wide receiver 1 fall to Tet McMillan. Why do I even try to say his first name?
Tatoria McMillan.
Tatoria. I'm just going to say Tet. But yeah, him, Chargers. I think that Ladd McConkey is a top 32 receiver in this league. I haven't gone through the list, but I think he would end up being one of them. So I don't think they need someone better. And I wasn't even big on them taking a receiver in the first round. I didn't like the idea of it. But just looking at it now, 22nd pick, McMillan's different type of receiver. Mike Williams will be there. They're kind of similar. That could maybe even help him grow more. So I took McMillan there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chargers. I think receiver could be an. Round on Ladd McConkey, so I don't think they use another, first round pick on a receiver. So I kind of get that too. So, but to Tatoria McMillan, I mean, falling this far down the board, I think that would be viewed as a steal at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
how do you have it? Yeah. 23rd pick. What do you have happening at this spot?
So this is Green Bay, and I thought of trades. I thought of defense, offense. And then when I'm going through it, I remembered the Jair Alexander rumors. And I still think that trade is going to get done. I completely forgot about it. No one talked about it because they thought it was going to be like they're going to use him to get picked, to get Metcalf, and that didn't work. So I think they'll eventually trade him somewhere. I think they'll go get corner. Jody Barron out of Texas. I think he's the clear next best corner. I don't feel like that's really a discussion. I feel like it goes Hunter, just athlete. Then goes Will Johnson. And I think it goes down to Barron. And so I got Packers doing that. I considered, I was thinking, do they go get receiver? But I was like, if they go get receiver, they have to think he's a 1. And I like Ibuka, but he's my favorite receiver, and I don't even think he's a wide receiver 1. I think he's a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I think he's a wide receiver 2. Yeah.
That's not the player I see them drafting. So Barron from Texas.
I have the same exact pick, Jade Barron out of Texas. I think Jair Alexander, he's going to be gone. They may even trade him this offseason. Who knows? And Green Bay's a very smart team in terms of it may not look like they need to draft a position, but they're always looking ahead, a few years ahead, and they know that players are going to be moving out the door. You bring other players in, you develop them behind them. I think this would be a great pick for Green Bay, and I do get the suggestion of taking a receiver here, but on my board,
yeah,
on your board, if McMillan is there, for instance, if McMillan's there at 23 come draft night, I could see them doing that because they try to get DK Metcalf. They may try to get a physical receiver that they can use in the red zone, jump ball receiver, especially Jordan Love. Jordan Love to me, I still am not sold on him as a lot of other people are. I'm not, and he's not that accurate. But if you get McMillan, the catch radius and the windows are much larger, so that could be a possibility if he's there. But for both of our draft boards, I think this pick makes perfect sense for both players, or for the Packers. 24th overall, the Minnesota Vikings. I haven't taken Malachi Starks out of Georgia. I think this is a really good pick for them. Harrison Smith is entering year 14. I don't know how many more years he's going to have. Brian Flores' defense, he has the corner safeties move around a lot. Malachi Starks can move around a lot, play different positions, play different roles. I think it's the perfect pick for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I also have safety. I just have Starks is gone, so I have Nick Emmanwori from South Carolina. So basically everything you said, just not as good as a safety, a little more athletic or a little better athletic profile than Starks, I believe, but not as talented. So yeah, I don't have much to add on that. Harrison Smith did return. Didn't think he would, but maybe that could be he becomes full-time starter next year. They kind of have built up some young depth on defense. I think they continue that. And with 25th pick, here's my second trade, because I was looking at it and I knew that I wanted Jackson Dart to the Browns. And I was thinking, okay, but when do the Browns feel like they need to trade up? And I was just like, you know what? Maybe they don't want to give the Rams a shot, because maybe the Rams could go get Stafford's replacement, and maybe they weren't planning it, but then he falls, even though he's probably not a first-round quarterback. That's just how quarterbacks go. So, yeah, I have Jackson Dart, 25th pick. Texans trade it to the Browns. Browns go get their perceived quarterback of the future. Carter Dart stack. We'll see.
So we have the same thing. We have 9 picks apart of the trade.
I have Browns waiting a little longer.
Well, I have Houston keeping this pick, and this is another obvious spot that they need. They need offensive linemen. I have him taking Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. I think his versatility is also very attractive. Very attractive. Along the offensive line during his career at North Dakota State. He played left tackle in 2024. I think the versatility and the fact that you can move him around, and there's so many different spots on our offensive line that struggles. He could, plug and play at certain spots throughout the season based on, if players are struggling and not producing. So I have offensive guard / tackle Gray Zabel to the Houston Texans at 25.
Mm-hmm. That was possibly going to be my pick if they kept it.
26. So 26, I had the Rams trading up in the spot to get Will Johnson at 19. So I have Tampa here. Tampa Bay takes edge rusher James Pierce. I think defense is kind of getting old. I think offensively they have mostly everything figured out, and maybe they can address the offensive line. But I think again, James Pierce out of Tennessee, really productive player. He had 7.5 sacks and 23 solo tackles for Tennessee this year. I think production-wise, I think he's clearly the best pass rusher available, and to get him at 26, I think is a bargain for the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's he's really talented. It seems like he's a character concern guy, so that'll be.
But in the right locker room, those type of guys can always.
And I think Tampa seems like a good locker room. There's nothing Todd Bowles, so I think they're pretty good there. Well, I have Rams at 26. And you mentioned him early, and I did not think you'd have him that high, but he is versatile. Jahad Campbell, Alabama linebacker. To me, he feels like a Rams defensive player. He can play off ball. He can play edge rusher. Had him kind of fall in here. So I'm so torn with all the edge rushers. I feel like I'm just kind of after Mike Green. I'm just throwing them in a barrel and let's see who comes out. Don't know who goes where. It's just all team preference. So I just had the Rams going more versatile there. And then next pick, Ravens 27, another edge rusher. Again, it's just picking who you think they're going to pick. Nick Scorton, Texas A&M. He's outside of Shamar Stewart, and Stewart's kind of been known because he has all the big athletic stats. But I think Scorton can still be good too. I don't have a ton to say about him. I just think Ravens continue to pile up solid players, and he just feels like a solid player to me, not a star.
So my pick, you had this player way up in the draft. I forgot exactly what pick you had him, but I have Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon to the Baltimore Ravens. He just feels like a Ravens player, another gritty, really good player inside on the defensive line.
Mhm.
And, playing the AFC North against teams that run the ball a lot, I do think, in the AFC in general, I do think Baltimore continues to solidify that defense line, and I have him taking Derek Harmon out of Oregon. 28th pick, the Detroit Lions. I have him taking edge rusher out of Boston College, Donovan Izaraku. This is a player I think Lions have to go pass rusher. They were really reliant. I think Aiden Hutchinson led the team in sacks last season, despite only playing in 5 games. I think he had 7.5 sacks. He led the team in sacks.
Yeah, he's insane.
He went off in the first 5 games, but Izaraku, I'm actually a pretty big fan. After doing this mock draft, I kind of watched some stuff on him. He had 16.5 sacks last season in 12 games, and he's not just a one-trick pony where he's either a speed rusher or a power rusher. He has an allotment of moves that he can utilize to get to the quarterback. I really like this fit for Detroit. And for me, I think edge rusher is pretty obvious for them because they've addressed the secondary pretty well. They got DJ Reed from the Jets. They spent, premium draft picks in the past few drafts on corners and in free agency on corners and safeties. So I do think edge rusher is the spot that they should go, and I think the spot they will go.
Yep, I am following your lead. I did not have him in the first round. It's, again, just guessing here on edge rushers. But Lions, I have him taking James Pierce, and I think that there may not be a better locker room than the Lions. And I was kind of scared. I was like, am I really going to give James Pierce to the Eagles? And then they do this garbage again where they get like the most talented, fast edge rusher D lineman, but he falls for some reason. So I didn't have that. So I had the Lions taking him, and I think he explained it. This is Pierce ceiling. Can you have something crazy? Because I feel like I was also doing I almost had Pierce to Bengals because I just feel like some team may take a shot.
No, he's definitely a player that can go in the first round because
considered the first pick 365 days ago, possible first pick, and character issues, and so that was tough. But I don't have the Lions passing up on him. Pick 29. I had this when I did the mock draft. I did differently. But then I was like, wait, Luke, you literally told yourself you're going to do this the whole time with Washington. Last year they had Brian Robinson, Eckler. I originally had him taking Siobhan Revelle, East Carolina quarterback. I think got hurt early in the year, so didn't really play. But he's supposed to be really talented. But I just thought about it more. I was like, wait, why would I have him so running back, and then it's picking your running back, and Hampton just doesn't seem like the Washington running back to me. This is off of pure feel, just I feel like it's Trayvon Henderson, Washington running back. I feel like Brian Robinson's nice. Nothing special. I feel like Eckler's fine. Nothing special. I feel like they go Henderson here. I think, they're going to look at it. Pedigree, won a title, really highly recruited, very productive. Continue to help build that offense. Maybe get a running back who's truly talented.
To be honest, running back was something I was considering, but I think they just need to get the defense side of the ball right. I have him taking South Carolina safety Nick Imawari. I think secondary-wise, they got Marshawn Lattimore. I'm not sure how good he is anymore. I don't know if the injuries have caught up to him. I do think they have to address the secondary. You're playing against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, CeeDee Lamb, in that Malik Neighbors, in the NFC East alone. There's still a bunch of other wide receiver talent in that conference. I think they need to address the defense side of the ball. So I think running back is probably I just don't think they're going to do that. And I do get the point that you're making with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Eckler's older. Robinson really, his production comes a lot from scoring touchdowns, but he's not the most efficient runner. So I get where you're coming from. I'm shocked you didn't have him wanting Hampton at this pick.
I think I'm pretty. I think I find them 2A, 2B, and I just had a feel. I have a feel that Henderson's going above Hampton.
Pick 30. I have the Buffalo Bills going defensive tackle, and I have them taking Ohio State Tyleik Williams. I think this could be considered a reach just based on the fact that Kenneth Murray is still on the board defensive tackle from Michigan, or not Kenneth Murray.
Kenneth Grant.
Kenneth Grant, excuse me, yeah. So I think it could be, a reach. I don't think Tyler Williams is, this high on the draft board, but for me, this is a gut feel pick, and Williams, I can kind of envision him in a Buffalo Bills uniform. So that's why I have him in this spot. He just feels like a Buffalo Bill. I don't know why, but he kind of does.
So this is Bills are 30, Chiefs are 31, and I had each taking defensive tackle, but not Williams. I don't have him either. I have the Bills taking Ole Miss D tackle Walton Nolan. So he has more of like a pass rushing pedigree. Obviously, he didn't get like 10 or 12 sacks. He had like 6.5 at Ole Miss, but for D tackle in college, that's a pretty good amount. And so I think that they obviously want to go D line, but I think they want to go pass rushing D line. And so that's why I have them taking Walter Nolan. They need to get to Mahomes. And then I have Chiefs right after that. They take Kenneth Grant, more of a run stopper, maybe more all around, but Walter Nolan probably has a higher ceiling. So I have him taking Grant, put him beside the boy Chris Jones. He's getting older. Maybe it can become a staple once Jones is gone. Who knows when that's going to happen? But yeah, then I have Kenneth Grant to the Chiefs. And I would like that. I'd like that, Chiefs fan.
The Chiefs, so if this player wasn't sliding down my board, I would consider the Chiefs trading back in the spot because the Chiefs only have 6 picks in this year's draft, so I could see them trading back. But Ohio State offensive tackle Josh Simmons is still on the board. They need left tackle. I think they go him just based on value and the fact that they need, a left tackle. And I know they signed Jalen Moore earlier this offseason. I think this pick would allow them to potentially either put Josh Simmons at left tackle or you can put him at right tackle and completely kick out Juwan Taylor. And I know that's kind of we're on different, wavelengths on that. You think Juwan Taylor's solid. I just don't think he's that good. And maybe the money that they paid him, they feel forced to play him. But I do think that this could open the door to the Chiefs kind of maneuvering their offensive line a little bit. So I have offensive tackle Josh Simmons to the Kansas City Chiefs and hope that they solidify the left tackle position. Pick 32. So end of the first round is where we see trades a lot. And so I have a trade here. I have the Philadelphia Eagles trading with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Jacksonville Jaguars snag Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. They lost Christian Kirk, and they had to trade him. And Liam Cohen's offense, he likes to utilize those slot receivers a lot. He had Chris Godwin last year in Tampa Bay. And I think Emeka Egbuka with Brian Thomas would be they would complement each other very well. Brian Thomas takes the top off the defense. And Egbuka, I think he may not be the best receiver in this class. I know you have him up there. I do think he's the safest receiver.
Yeah, that's kind of why I have him.
And I don't think he's a number 1, but I think in this offense, as number 2, you have to make sure that Trevor Lawrence is the guy. And I guess you paid him, but you have to get his development back on track. So I have Jacksonville Jaguars and slot receiver Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State.
That's probably my favorite pick that you did. That was good. Yeah, I had Philly keeping it, and I thought about Buka, and I thought about like every high prospect.
Receiver, though.
No, I know, but I mean, I was thinking about it. I'm not saying that they need a Buka, but they don't need anyone. And so I was thinking about it, and who you had the Chiefs taking at 31, Simmons. I had Chiefs taking Grant. I had Eagles taking Josh Simmons. I know he's a tackle, but I think Mekhi Becton style. Move him to guard, maybe future tackle because Lane Johnson's getting older. Who knows how long he'll truly be playing at elite level, even though it seems like he'll never stop. So yeah, I just went Eagles taking high potential. That's what they do. I don't even know if it's genius, but it's not stupid either. So I think they deserve credit for their picks, but it's weird. It just works out for them, and you gotta respect that. So yeah, Josh Simmons, Eagles, high potential. Yeah, Eagles don't take low potential players.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, and we'll do a little recap here for a couple minutes. We both didn't have Luther Burden come off the board, which I'm not a huge Luther Burden. I think he's going to be the receiver that kind of slips. I also have Matthew Golden not going the first, probably like my most unpopular opinion. I think, I could look wrong in that aspect, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And I I don't know how many. I think I had 3 receivers go in the first round. I don't know how many you had, but like I said, like in
Just
previous years,
2.
just 2.
I didn't even have
And
I didn't even have
last.
who I would. Yeah, I didn't even have him, and he's my number 1 because I don't think he goes.
Yeah, I Luther Burden, Matthew, especially Luther Burden, I just don't think going to go in the first round. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty solid first mock draft. We may do another one prior to the draft, maybe a week before draft if we learn more information. Mm-hmm. Usually there's a trade, at this point, or like lean up to the draft, we may see a trade for a pick prior to the draft starting. But I just don't think that's going to happen this year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting mock draft. I think do we have all 4 quarterbacks, like the 4 main quarterbacks going? Or there's a main 3, but then Jalen Milroe. Do we each have 4 quarterbacks going in the first round?
Yeah, and we had Ward, Milroe, and Dart to same teams, but you had Shedeur to Giants. I had Shedeur to Saints. I feel like we were pretty similar. Yeah, we had like Warren, same pick, Green, same pick, Barron, same pick, which I'm surprised that you went that. Same position at a lot of places. Yeah, it's pretty similar. Jacksonville, we each had Graham, but we just had different picks. I think my bold one was Bears trade up for Genty. That was my bold one.
I don't know if that's really bold.
But trading up to 5 it's taking running back at 5 and then trading up for running back at 5. You don't see
I think my most bold pick was probably Will Johnson at 9. Rams trainer for Will Johnson at 19.
Yes.
That may have been my most bold one. And like Will Johnson, I think he's a great prospect. For me, it's just teams needed other positions, and he kind of there's always a player every year that slides down the board that we really don't expect. So I think Will Johnson could go to the 49ers because they lost so many players on that side of the ball. But I just think
I had Will Johnson at 6.
Yeah, to was it
Raiders?
Carolina's 8. Raiders.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Raiders, I think, are a really interesting spot. I don't really agree with the Geno Smith money they gave him, but they have their quarterback for the next 2 years at least. Yeah, Will Johnson's interesting. Raiders can be Ashton Genty if Bears don't trade in front of them. I think Ashton Genty is pretty much a lock to go to Raiders.
No, I agree.
Anything else before we close out today's episode? And next week, we may do some NBA talk. We didn't really do any March Madness talk. I was kind of disappointed that we didn't do that. But NBA regular season's kind of wrapping up pretty quickly here. I want to say next 10 days or so, next 14 days or so. Playoffs will be starting. So, yeah, next week we'll probably do some NBA playoff talk, kind of, because I think the playoff pictures will be kind of.
Yeah, it's not set. It honestly may not be set till last day because I think Clippers face Timberwolves or Warriors, and Warriors beat Lakers, but then Warriors play Nuggets tonight, and Jokic didn't play the last Nuggets game, so he's probably gonna come out firings. And the East is boring, except you're just waiting for conference finals. The West is fun.
Yeah. Well, that will do it for our episode today. We did our first mock draft. We probably do at least one more. I don't know if we'll get to 3 or 4. We'll probably do one more based on stuff that we hear. But until then, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also follow us on Spotify as well. But until then, we'll see you.
Peace.